Okay, it's time for another rant video. I seem to be doing this quite often now. Well, some of them haven't exactly uploaded yet, but yeah, this is more to do with social media or in terms of what I've actually seen on there. I mean, this is basically about people who start talking about stuff that they know nothing about the particular subject matter, and then what they end up doing is like spreading misinformation about the particular thing. So, as I said, for example, you get some people saying a particular subject matter, and then there's a difference for me between factual information and opinion. And for me, if you have an opinion on something, it's neither right or wrong, it's just your opinion. Which for me, obviously, everybody is entitled to their own opinion on something. They're not right or wrong. But then there are some things where they are factual, where certain things are affecting something, and then you've got the bare facts to kind of prove that's why the particular thing is affecting something. And then the facts are there in black and white, not kind of invented just so that it kind of backs up someone's point, but they're actually there, and the actual facts are there in black and white. I mean, you can't argue with it. But then you get some of these people, as I said before, that will sit there and then will spread misinformation about something. And then one of the worst things that these same people will do is that they don't even show the evidence to back up what they've actually said. So basically, I could sit there and could say that the moon is made out of cheese, and then someone could say to me, well, no, it isn't. And I could turn and say, yes, it is. And then I could turn, and so they could say to me, well, what evidence have you got to back it up? And I go, well, it's just, well, I heard it from somewhere, or it's just, as far as I see it, it's actually a fact. So my fact is, in terms of what I'm saying about the particular thing, is adamant, even though you've got no evidence to sit there to back up that actual claim of that actually being the actual case. And that's what some of these people do, because as I said before, on social media, anybody can sit there and can say anything about a particular subject matter, especially if it's serious, but then you don't have the actual evidence to kind of back it up. You're just saying it. And some of these people, it's just speculation, or they've heard it from someone, or they've heard a rumor from somebody. And then we've seen people spread stuff that said stuff and it actually isn't true, and they haven't had the evidence to back it up. We've seen it with Donald Trump, where he's said stuff that actually wasn't even true at all. And then just because you're saying it doesn't make it fact. If you're going to say something and then you've got the concrete evidence in there in black and white to back it up, and you can't argue with it. All we've seen with Fox News, where see they got in trouble where they were accusing the Dominion people of falsifying the US elections, and obviously that was going to go to court, and then obviously they settled out of court, and then one of their the Fox hosts ended up getting fired. Well, I assume it was over it. Obviously it's probably a lot more complicated than that. I ended up getting fired over it. This just shows. And then I think apparently Fox is still being sued by someone else from another company for saying something, and apparently they're not willing to sit there to take the money. They just want to sit there and take them to court out of principle. We've seen newspapers do the same thing, where they sprout stuff that actually isn't true. And again, it's probably they're hearing stories from snitches and sources, which again isn't 100% concrete on proof of the actual fact of the subject matter. And then we hear about these people getting in trouble, and then we never hear these same people apologizing for spreading information. And then as of course, everybody's on social media 24/7, and as I said, to me it could be so dangerous when you're spreading misinformation about something, which can cause anger and hatred and all this stuff. And then you're using these platforms to spread stuff that kind of isn't true, and people just believe it. And if you've got grade A brain cells in your head, you either will choose not to believe something, or what you would do is that you'll dig up the facts, use the time and the facts to dig up to find out whether or not something is true or not. But then a lot of people, they don't do that. All they do, as I said before, it's, oh, I heard from this and heard from that. And again, when you sit and you say to them, okay, where did you kind of hear this? They could never, oh, I heard this from somebody, or I know somebody. That's not the same as it being a complete a fact on the actual subject matter. If you're going to sit there and for me, and you're going to say something, at least have the evidence to back up what you're saying is actually true. Anybody can sit there and can turn and say, well, I believe this is true. Like, one kind of example is that I've had people, you've seen some people online saying with the NHS nurses striking, and some people said obviously they've been offered a 5% increase, and one or two people have said, oh, they've been offered a large sum of money. So I don't know why they're being complaining about not taking the money, and then they're not feeling sorry for them. Now again, look how many years that the nurses haven't been given a pay rise for. We saw this during the lockdown, where obviously people were clapping, and then the sacrifices that a lot of these nurses and doctors are having to work. You hear about nurses having to go to food banks because they're struggling to sit there to actually to eat. Back in the day was when my mum worked in the NHS. When the nurses used to live on site, with this be like dormitories for the nurses where they used to live. I think most hospitals now have got rid of them all. Nurses have to sit there and pay. Maybe you have to pay a mortgage on a house. Maybe you've got kids, and all that's gone up because of the cost of living. You've got rent that's kind of gone up now because again, inflation and the cost of living. And then some landlords are obviously passing all their costs onto the tenants, and some obviously charging their tenants, and people struggling to pay the rent. Again, when it comes to rent, it depends on kind of where you live. So if you live in London, for example, which is the capital of the UK, you're gonna have to pay a lot. It's a lot more expensive if you're living outside of London. Also, you've got the electricity, you've got the energy increase. Well, you've got gas and electricity, which is very expensive at the moment, and that's going to get worse. And the governments are not aiding people anymore now in terms of that thing. You've also got the cost of food, which now is a lot more kind of expensive now, because you see supermarkets increasing their price of the food exponentially. And that's very expensive. Even people like me are struggling. And you're seeing people going to the food banks, and again, going to the reduced food. Obviously, sometimes they with the yellow stickers on them, depending on where you go, having to get those foods to sit there to eat, or buying the cheap foods. And I know that with the reduced foods, they reduce it twice, depending in a couple of times during the day. And some people have to sit there to do that and buy bulks of the reduced food and then freezing them so that they can eat. And then some people, it's easy for some people, where if some people are actually earning a good money, which they're entitled to do, by the way, because you've got the education and got the job and you're good at what you do, are fully entitled to the money that they've worked for and the hard work they put into. So I'm not begrudging people who've got money, but you get people like that don't seem to kind of understand that not all their definition of a lot of money might not be the same for other people. So, other people are kind of like, other people are struggling. And I'm like, back in the day in the 60s, 70s and 80s, in proportion to what you earned with wages to inflation was balanced. So when inflation went up, the wages kind of went up in sense of balance. Now, that kind of doesn't happen anymore now. So now that's all gone now. So now it's unbalanced, which is why people don't get proper pay rises, and then everything's more expensive, so they end up being in debt. And obviously we've seen what's happening with, and then you've got all these other companies where the energy companies, the oil barons, are sitting there making billions and energy companies making billions and billions of profit through a time of when people are actually struggling, and yet they can't spend all the money they're making. They can't spend all that money in their entire lifetime. So I think sometimes, and then you get people saying, "Oh, well, I heard that nurses that they don't want to sit there and strike." That may be the case, but if that's the case, show us the evidence to back up that this is accurate, rather than sit there and just spouting something that any idiot can turn around and say. So my kind of whole point is that if you're going to spout something about what you deem as being a fact, either show us the evidence of it, or just shut the hell up, or just state that what it is, that it's just your opinion, and then just leave it as that. But yeah, I can't. Yeah, as I said, I don't tend to stay on social media. I do what I have to do and come off, because there's just too many ignorant, uneducated people on there. Unfortunately, it does have some use in terms of you can make a lot of good friends on there and reach out to people who you wouldn't normally be able to reach out to, because obviously you can't talk to millions of people at the same time. But there's just too many ignorant people on this planet. So yeah, that's my rant over.